Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, and this is a podcast dedicated to helping owners of accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses, in fact, have the premier firm in their area, and most importantly, get you paid what you're worth. It's in this show that we actually cover topics ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, onboarding, mental health, and so much more, and today's going to be no exception. We happen to have on the show today Matthew Banker. Now, Matthew happens to be the founder and lead strategist at Benchmark Growth Marketing. It's a marketing agency specifically for B2B accounting firms. Matt brings a words-first approach to marketing because his superpower is the ability to help business owners communicate more clearly and build alignment. Matt actually helps accounting, bookkeeping, and tax firms develop a digital marketing ecosystem that consistently brings in leads for their business. So this is going to be an amazing discussion. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roger. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be good. So let's start with ecosystem. You speak of a digital marketing ecosystem. Tell me what that means.
Yeah, I use the word ecosystem sometimes. I use the word like a marketing engine as well. The idea is there's a lot of different tactics that are involved with marketing, and really they need to be working together. There are different things that you could do, but if they're at cross purposes or they're not in alignment, it often ends up being a bit of a waste of money. And so when I say ecosystem or engine, we're talking about your website, we're talking about social media, any paid campaigns you might be doing in search, local SEO, keyword SEO, all those things. And really at the bottom or the base of that, also you're talking about core messaging, your positioning of your firm, all of those sorts of things are really important, all tied up in this bow of a marketing ecosystem, I guess.
I can relate to that because we are actually in the middle of a rebranding, and because of that, the messaging that we have is actually right now convoluted. It's just not as clear as we'd like it to be as we go through this transition. And you're correct. I really agree. There's an ecosystem, and you've got to have things complementing one another in all those platforms. The other thing that comes to mind when you bring that up is technology, tools. You've mentioned, obviously, social media, but I'm thinking CRM, websites. Let's kind of start with websites, I guess. What's the biggest mistake you see accounting firms make with their website?
Well, I'll give you a couple. I think the biggest thing that we see, and the solution that we often start with, is that like you said, the messaging is a little bit convoluted. It's not clear. Sometimes that actually the root problem is that the business model is changing or isn't totally clear. Maybe it's traditionally a tax firm, but now they really want to do the monthly accounting, and it doesn't show up in their website. And so when people land there, they don't actually understand what the offer is or how it's going to make their life better. And really actually, okay, if I had to say one really basic mistake that a ton of accounting firms make is they don't make it very clear how to get started. There's no schedule a call button. There's no, let's talk button. And you sort of just expect people, maybe they'll find their way to our contact page and fill out a form, and somehow we'll end up on the phone together, and that will be a sale. So that's probably the number one thing, is just that, really clear call to action and really a lot of clarity around what you do, how you're going to make people's lives better, and how to get it.
Yeah. In my marketing studies years ago, I remember a book that was called Don't Make Me Think.
Yes.
And I loved it because it was very specific to say, don't assume that the person is going to know what they're supposed to do next. Make it abundantly clear what the call to action is. Therefore, what? I'm here. Now what do I do? And it's the arrows, the buttons, it's the blinking. And a lot of these things can be annoying. So there's, from a graphic art point of view, a more subtle way of doing some of these things, but it's got to be clear. Where's the phone number? Where's the button? How do I schedule an appointment? Where's the calendar? All those types of things need to be abundantly obvious. So what are some best practices for a website? What are some of the, hey, you've got to make sure you have this?
Yeah. Top things. Well, I think a website doesn't have to be massive. You want it to be pretty easy for people to use. There's been a change. This was a change a while ago, but there was a time when a lot of websites, they had a ton of individual pages for different keywords. You'd have small business manufacturing accounting, or, accounting for construction and general contractors. And so you'd have all these sub pages, and people are clicking around all over your site. Well, there was a change where most people are visiting, or at least probably 50% or more of your prospects are visiting on their phones. And it's much easier actually to scroll down a page than it is to click your way around. And so simplifying your website can be a really beneficial thing from a user experience standpoint. I like to think that there's more or less 5 pages that you need on a website. You need your home page, which is, it's really their sales page. It's for new people. They're not very familiar with your firm. And you're really trying to sell the idea, the success that you offer, the benefits, all of that. You're trying to say, yes, we understand you, and you're trying to help people, your prospects, know that this is going to be a good fit for them.
Yeah, they're in the right place.
They're in the right place. They have a problem. You can solve the problem for them. And you've got your about page. I love the about page. A lot of people don't know what to do with it, but I think of it as the humanizing page. So I like what you can do, but do I trust and do I like the people behind this business? So it's a way for you as a firm owner to say, this is why I do what I do. This is what I love about my clients. This is the heart behind the business that we do. It makes you more personable and humanizes your firm because people want to do business with other people, not just a nameless corporation in most cases. The one that is really missing from a ton of sites is the pricing page. So a lot of people push back on this because they say, well, I can't list prices on my site because every engagement is different. It depends on how many transactions are involved, how many bank accounts and credit cards, or all those things. And my answer is, the number one question people are asking when they land on your site is, what problem? Can you solve my problem? The number 2 question that they're asking is, what's it going to cost? And so if you don't answer that question, they're going to go elsewhere. And I guarantee there are people who are not booking calls with you. They're qualified prospects, but they're not booking a call because you can't answer that question. And so a pricing page, even if the answer is it depends, you can write something that helps people understand what it depends on, what are the factors that are going to go into the price, and give some ranges or something. But answer that question in some way.
Yeah.
Those are the key, 3 pages. There's some other ones. You usually need a service page. You need a good contact page with a form on it. It's good to have a blog and have some resources and things like that. But those 3, if you spent a little bit of time on your website as a firm owner, really optimizing those 3 pages, it can make a huge difference in terms of the amount of and quality of the leads that you get.
Now, I love this because you're really making it simple. You've identified 3 specific pages that all the sites should have, a definite best practice, and I liked how you explained each. The way I would add to this is realize what's the user coming, the potential customer coming to the site for. What they're first of all doing, I think this is hugely important, is they're merely trying to verify and validate that you are in fact in business offering the services that they understood you do. What I'm trying to say is are you just a fly-by-night trying to pull this off on weekends? You've got a side gig, or are you legitimately in business? And have you done what so many other businesses have done, which is get a website? It's the digital version of a brick and mortar office. And that's where I'm coming. And I'm trying to see, are you legitimate? So I think that's the first thing that we're trying to establish, is that we are in fact here for the long haul. We're in business. I'm here to take care of you. The second is the listing of the services. I think that's hugely important. And one of the exercises I always suggest is go through and identify what are the features of what it is you do, and associate with every one of the features one or more benefit of what the client gets for having you do them. And on your website, are you able to easily communicate that information? Here's what we do, and here's why we do it for you, and what you get out of it. At that point, the customer is clearly able to see you're an accounting firm. You're not a construction company. You're not a maid service. So you're obviously, I'm in the right place. But now what? What's the call to action? And that goes back to what you were saying earlier: call, schedule an appointment. It's that clear thing. We could get into a conversation about trying to generate leads and giving them an offer, kind of a loss leader, a white paper, something, a free consult, something that says, give me your information, and in exchange, I'll give you this. So that's a good discussion to have about lead generation. But you're about us. I love that. That's where you can show we're we're an upscale professional firm like a law firm where we're wearing suits and ties and we're going to go to bat with you for the IRS for tax resolution? Or are we more down to earth? We're wearing Hawaiian shirts, we're chill. This is where you get to be personable as you were describing it, and you get to kind of connect with people at that emotional level, and that's something they can say, hey, I can work with these people. I can work with that person. That's really helpful with the personable side. But then your feature or your pricing sheet, I love that. I know that there are different ways to price. I loved how you said they're there to try and figure out, can they afford you? Are you willing to pay? But if you can help them kind of see bundles, this is where menu pricing can be very effective. You can bundle your packages and say, we do bookkeeping and accounting, and we do bookkeeping, accounting, and tax. What do you want? Bookkeeping, accounting, bookkeeping, and tax. And you can explain what those bundles look like. And all of a sudden I can pick, well, this is what I'm looking for. But it does lead to the question of, well, how much is this going to cost me? And if there's not a dollar amount, if you can at least say, here's how we come to that determination, that at least helps me understand that there's going to be some rhyme and reason to this. And that's something I can, wrap my head around. Let's talk. So excellent explanation of the website. That was really good. So that brings me to, with marketing, because this is your expertise, how involved does the firm owner need to be in the marketing? Is it something they should own and really kind of be the instigator of it all? Can you delegate it? What are your thoughts there?
This is such a tricky question. I've met plenty of firm owners who they are just saying, look, I don't want to do any of this. I just want to throw some money at something and have it return leads. And there are some things that you can throw some money at. It depends a little bit on what it is that what problem you're trying to solve in your marketing. So at a basic level, you're talking about eyeballs and phone calls. You need to get enough eyeballs on your site or be aware of the fact that you exist. And then you need to make sure that if they know you exist, that they actually schedule a call. And so that's like the conversion piece of it. So if your problem is that the traffic that's coming to your site is not converting into sales calls, you got to solve that first, because driving more good traffic to a site that's not converting is not going to solve your problem, right?
Amen. Amen.
And I don't think that a firm owner can outsource that part, fully outsource that part of the process. They need to be involved. Now, the caveat I will say is you are very close to your business and you know what you're doing very well, much better than your clients do. And there's this thing we talk about, which is like the curse of knowledge, which is when you know your business so well, when you talk about it at like a level 9 or 10, and your audience, your ideal prospects, they're operating at like a level 2 or 3. And that's not like smart or intelligence. It's just they don't know the inside terminology and the jargon or the acronyms. And so you really need, I've found, and I don't know if this has been your experience, Roger, the hardest messaging to do is for your own site. It's much easier when you're on the outside and helping somebody else. And so I think the business owner really needs to be a part of that process, but it's also really beneficial to work with someone who isn't so closely tied to the business that can bring some of that perspective and act almost as like an avatar for your ideal customer. But it's not something you can fully outsource. You got to be involved in it.
I appreciate that, because one of the things that I think is so often I think people want to delegate a lot of things that they're not familiar with or comfortable with. And I appreciate you saying you have to be involved. I've done numerous website iterations, brochures, marketing plans, and programs. In my head, it makes sense. I can visualize what's happening. I understand why things are where they are and what they're saying. A layperson, an outsider, comes in and looks at this and basically says, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what this has to do with anything. And you try to explain it, and as you explain it, you're realizing, okay, that one word, that one picture, that one phrase means so much more in my mind than what it is. And I just thought it made sense. It doesn't make sense. And that outside perspective, especially when they come with a marketing expertise, they can help mold and draft things so that they're definitely more effective. And that's what I'm hearing you say. So I like that. I think you were going to say something else. Did I cut you off though?
Well, there's so much more when it comes to marketing. What I was going to basically say is if you've solved that that phone calls problem. You get people, the people that do come to your site, you get a good conversion rate from that traffic. And what you really need is just more traffic to it. That's usually something that you can kind of throw some money at, and you don't need the owner to be as involved. So, at that point, maybe you're looking at hiring a local SEO firm to, when someone types in accounting firm near me, you show up in more of the results. The owner doesn't need to do that. Paid ads are another option where you can hire someone to do it. To a certain extent, social media, maybe you can hand that off to an admin. Social media, email marketing, all those things, there's for sure a range of skill. And so it's not that just anyone can do it, but there are elements to that an admin or a marketing manager can handle. But what I would say is it's real dangerous for a firm owner to try to outsource their expertise and ask someone else. I've got great copywriters. You do not want one of my copywriters going out and doing research on a topic and then pretending to be you, because they just don't have the level of insight. And so as a firm matures and as an owner is less involved in production and less involved in the sales function, I think it's a great idea for that firm owner to start leaning into developing a voice, kind of creating a little bit more of an audience, thought leadership, and being the face of the company. It's not something you can outsource, because if you invest in, let's say you've got a great, staff accountant who's super smart, and you're like, hey, we want you to be the face of our company on social media. Well, that person, they don't have a long-term stake in your business. Maybe they build a great audience and they're super successful, and then they go out and they start their own firm, or they go work for someone else. It can be a dangerous thing to expect the people on your team to represent your expertise and kind of the heart of what you're trying to do as a business. So if you're trying to get more awareness into the world, I do really encourage owners to be a part of that process and not think that it's something that can be fully outsourced. It's not everyone wants to do that. I think the dream is, hey, I just want to run a firm, and I don't want to work in the firm anymore. I love it when I find an owner who says, I'm gonna elevate to be that one-to-many voice and limit the one-to-one, direct client facing stuff. And instead, I'm going to try to be more of the face of the firm.
Yeah, I can really relate to this. Just to give it some backstory, well, let me start with this, and then I'll give you the backstory. The idea of being the face of the business has been very hard for me. If you go anywhere on the internet right now, you're going to see my face pretty much anywhere. Go to our website; it's just going to be everywhere. I became basically the poster child for the company, and the backstory to that is initially I was extremely reluctant to be that. We had years and years ago, literally as many as almost 20 years ago, decided as a company that instead of having an individual represent the business, we wanted the company to be its own kind of flagship type thing. And what we were trying to do is not have the company be dependent on a person, so that if that person happened to retire, get in an accident, something happened, the company wasn't then impacted because of their disappearing. Well, what we later learned, and I had to recognize, is that doing business today, especially because of social media, is a personable thing. Nobody does business necessarily with an icon or a logo. And so there's a person behind it. And so I needed to be willing to become vulnerable to actually put myself out there. And it's still something that I don't necessarily want to say I struggle with, but it just doesn't come natural. But it was something I had to intentionally go do. And there's, these social media influences out there that are just happy to be anywhere and everywhere all day long. That's not me. But yeah, I do recognize that my image needs to be used. I'm becoming more of that noticeable icon of what Universal represents with regards to the accounting profession. And I'm happy to do it now. And I guess I've become comfortable in that shoe. But at the same time, I do realize that working with the marketing agencies, you do need them to have that heavy lifting, that effort to draw people to that image. The other thing that you brought up that I think is very interesting is the idea of delegating it. you're right. It's hard to delegate your own voice. Nobody knows your vocabulary, your mannerisms, and so you've got to be willing to still be communicating and putting your information out there as you would only do it. So that two big things. I'd like that. I've got a question for you regarding marketing, and I should have asked this at the beginning. I've run into this question so many times that I think it's important to distinguish the difference between marketing and selling. So often people presume they're synonymous, and they're not synonyms. Marketing, I'm curious what your definition of it is and what sales is, and then I'm going to share my own.
Yeah. Well, there there's probably a line between what is sales and what is marketing, but there's also overlap, I think. So it's a fuzzy line at best. So there are some things that you can say, oh, this is definitely marketing. And then there are some things that you can say, this is definitely sales. But what I've also seen is that the more that marketers can think in terms of things like how does this impact revenue and lead to real like business outcomes, they're better marketers. And that's kind of a sales attitude. And the more that salespeople can think about like, I need to educate my target market and help move them along the path like early in the funnel, a lot of that kind of falls into marketing, but they end up being better salespeople as a result. But to answer your question kind of clearly, I really think of marketing as getting it's the educational path, and it's getting people to raise their hand and say, hey, this is a thing that I'm interested in. And then the sales function really takes over to say, all right, so you're interested in this. Let's make sure that this is a good fit and help you get to the point of, sending a check or, transferring some money or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion, I think, about like, this is definitely marketing and this is definitely sales. But so I'm interested to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to say I am argumentative over this. I don't want to sound I'm that definitive, but I will say that I think clarity here is very helpful. And you nailed it near the end there, where you said marketing is where you are putting a message out there to the point that a potential customer raises their hand and identifies, hey, I'm somebody that could benefit from your services. And one of the great ways to actually finalize that marketing process is to capture their contact information, whether it's in a networking meeting, on the internet, whenever that person says, hey, this interests me, and here's my name and number and email. That right there, the marketing, I think, is complete, because all of a sudden we know who the individual is. The sales is then everything that then follows that, because it can be a day, a week, a month, a year. The goal is to take that contact, whomever we've met, and now move them through the sales process, nurturing them to the point that we have a one-on-one conversation and can extend an engagement and get the sale. That transaction is the sell part of it. So the marketing is the heavy lifting. Where do I go? How do I find potential customers? And how do I get them to see enough value in what we're offering that they're willing to identify, self-acknowledge, raise their hand and say, hey, I think I could benefit from what you do. And I'm not wanting to pay for it, but I think I'm somebody that would be of interest. That information right there is the marketing's goal. And so that distinction is helpful, because when you go back to the accounting firm owner, they need to be clear what their job is. I'm going to bring people to your table. But once I bring them here, you have to do all the lifting. The sale of whether or not you get them as a client is on your shoulders, not on mine. The marketer, I'm bringing them to the table. It's got to be you that now positions yourself as, I'm the expert, I'm the authority, here's some information. The person starts to build rapport and they realize, I can benefit, here's some money, let's go to work. That's, I think, a healthy description between the two. And I think we were on the same page because you said the same thing more or less earlier. So I'm going to take this and now go to the next level and say, what's the difference between positioning and messaging then?
Yeah. Positioning, to me, positioning is really, it's pre-marketing. It's a strategic conversation. Really, in positioning, you're trying to figure out who are we going after and how are we going to compete in the market. So you're asking questions like, who is our ideal customer? What is it that they need? Are our products and services well suited for their needs and their style? So you're thinking about things like pricing models. You're thinking about things like, are we going to be the like really customer, like we understand our customers, we know their business backwards and forwards, and we come up with the custom solutions? Or are we going to be the super convenient, you just buy online and we do the stuff for you type of company. And pricing and how you compete is really all related into that. So the pricing, the process, the deliverables, and really it's like a go-to-market strategy. How are you going to be positioned against TurboTax and H&R Block versus the guy down the street? Are you trying to compete on price? Are you trying to compete on guidance and advisory aspects to your firm? All of that. When you get to messaging, though, now you have to somehow communicate that to the world in a way that is clear and understandable and compelling, right? And so the messaging is really this piece, and this is really one of my personal passions, is helping companies with the messaging. I do love the positioning stuff, but I get a room of partners or leadership around a table, and we ask what are we trying to say with our company? What are the main problems that we solve? And it's all about choices, because clear messaging doesn't say everything. You're choosing what not to communicate up front and what to kind of leave later in the process, and figuring out what are the words that we're going to use. And obviously across marketing, there's a lot of words involved. You've got your whole website, you've got email, you've got social media. And it's not that you're repeating the same things over and over again, but you need to have really clear themes and a really clear understanding to act as guardrails to make sure that you're not trying to say everything or too much too soon, and that you can have that really targeted messaging, the words to go after that market that you've determined in your positioning, and that explains how you serve a certain market, again, about your positioning. So messaging is really translating the go-to-business positioning piece of the puzzle.
Wonderful. Related to this, it reminds me of something I learned in marketing, and I think it's hugely relative, and it's this phrase: you have to say the right thing to the right people at the right time in the right way. Mm-hmm. So once we know who the people are and where they're at, so saying the right thing to the right people in the right time in the right way, that answers this whole narrative, because all of a sudden what we're doing is we're basically figuring out our avatar, who our ideal client is, what is our messaging, the positioning, and so forth, and when do they need to hear this particular message. You've got end of the year, tax season, you've got just different seasonalities that we can use within the accounting model because of deadlines and so forth. And then all of a sudden it's the messaging platform. Where are we saying this? Are we saying it in print? Are we saying it online? Are we going to say it in an email? Mm-hmm. All those things. And if we can just answer that question, we really come up with a great strategy, if you could call it that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I use a framework called a lot of people have read the book Building a Story Brand. It's a 7-part messaging framework that kind of positions, going back to positioning, it positions you as the guide and your customer as the hero. And then it's a framework that you can work through to really identify what are the key messages that we need to communicate. And then there is that second piece of understanding when to communicate them is really important as well. No one cares about how they're, the plan on how you're going to work with them if they don't yet understand the problem that you solve for your clients, or if you haven't shown that you have the authority and the credibility to be able to actually solve that problem. But so there's a sequence that generally this information needs to be communicated in. And then there are timing issues. With accounting firms, it's a very seasonal business. There are very specific times. Sorry if this is a little bit of a tangent, but a really interesting thing about marketing for accounting firms is this time of year, we're recording this in what is this, March?
March.
This is a super busy time for accountants and accounting firms. And they're basically like, I'm not taking meetings. I don't want any new clients. We just got to get through tax season. This is exactly the time when your ideal customers are feeling the most pain, right? This is when they're thinking about money and when they really are ready to switch or to find an accountant. And so it's this kind of it's an awkward marketing moment for them, because the ideal time to be taking on those new clients from the client's perspective is like the worst time of year for a lot of these firms to be thinking about how to market better and bring on more clients. So that's a challenge to be solved, but that's you talk about timing. That's the reality.
Yeah, but timing for us might be we're busy, but we could have
For
a
sure.
month or 2 or 3 ago actually put together a marketing strategy that the marketing company could actually put in place
Hmm.
that's not consuming our time, but we are deliberately doing it this time of year because of the need of
Yes,
the customer. So it's not
absolutely.
consuming our time. The agency's doing it. It was a pre-planned strategy, and they're implementing it while we're working. So that's good.
Hmm.
Back to your storyboard. Uh, I'm very familiar with that. Used it or use it, and I believe in it. I think our listeners would appreciate learning a little bit more about it because the whole idea is positioning the potential customer as the hero that they can, with the guide, the sage helping
Hmm.
them, they can achieve their greatest success. It's being the sage, which is the Obi-Wan, the Mr. Miyagi, the Gandolfo. It's all of a sudden we're in a position where we have something to use and help this hero become their best self. And oftentimes
Yes.
it's them becoming more than they realized they had potential to become. And if we can, in our marketing, help our clients realize that there's so much opportunity and potential if they just tap into these resources that we can offer, they can, as business owners, be making more informed business decisions, better informed business decisions. And
Hmm.
that's hugely powerful. So I like that whole narrative because I do think it resonates well in the marketing narrative.
Yeah, and it's not just a marketing perspective, but when you make that mindset shift of I am here to be the guide for my clients because I want them to win. I actually have found that's a very natural place to be for accountants. And actually the ones that I found that really love what they're doing, what they love about it is that they're helping individuals and business owners achieve their dreams. They love to be in that position. So they're already
Yeah.
operating out of that role. But then you go to their website and it says, you know, number one accounting firm in Chicago for 2021, and it's all about them, or they're listing their credentials and they're talking
Yeah.
about how great their product is. And what that does is when your audience interacts with that stuff, we all see ourselves as the hero of our own story, and we're all looking for a guide who can help us accomplish our dreams. But when we show up on a website that's all about you and hasn't made that shift, it's like, oh, here's another hero. I don't need a hero. It feels a little condescending to a degree if you show up and you're like, it's almost competition. Like, oh, their goals are not in alignment with my goals because they're also like their goal is to win as a company. Um, it's subtle, but the ideas that go through your head are, okay, that means that they're trying to maximize how much money they get out of me, or their goals are really like business first. But when you put yourself in that position of guide, we're here to help small businesses win. We're helping you have less stress and more profit. Those align with your own business firm goals, but they align with your customers' goals as well. And so it's so much easier to sell and serve that audience when you make that subtle shift.
Yeah, it's a fiduciary kind of approach to the whole thing.
100%.
I'm here for you. I'm more interested in your gain, your win than my own, and it's putting their priorities first. And I think that messaging is what you're trying to communicate there, and I
Hmm.
like that. So here's the next thing: accounting firms, bookkeeping firms, tax businesses. They're all in a position where they're trying to cut through the marketing noise,
Hmm.
have what they have to offer the business community stand out. How do they get a very clear and deliberate marketing strategy in place? What does that look like?
Mm. Uh, it's always better to have a plan, right? I've been developing in my mind kind of you have to have like a mental map of what you're trying to do with marketing. Um, let me put it this way though. There's three things that you need for your marketing to work, right?
Okay.
Number one, you need good ideas. Someone has to come up with a solid strategy for what you're going to do and how you're going to do that. And let me say, marketing is expensive, and you can pay for it in time or you can pay for it in money, right? Accounting, you're a business owner, you're a smart person, you can figure out the marketing yourself, but it does take time if that's the way you're going to do it, right? Or
Yeah.
you can pay someone else to do these things. But that number one thing, someone's got to have good ideas. So they have to have a strategy. So you can hire a strategist to help you develop that plan, or you can read, there's a lot of good books out there. Story Brand's a great one. Another one I recommend is the One-Page Marketing Plan. You figure out, what's our marketing strategy? That's number one. Number two, someone has to create stuff. They've got to write, they've got to design, they've got to set up campaigns, they've got to manage things. It's the labor involved in doing the things for marketing. And again, you could do it, or you could pay someone else to do it, time or money. Those are your options. Mm-hmm. And then number three is distribution. It has to get out into the world in some way. You could pay for it by putting money behind social media campaigns, or you could put time into it and do organic LinkedIn network building yourself. You could do direct mail. You could go on podcasts. All of those are options. And again, you have time or money. What I find is that accounting firms really struggle when they don't have one of those three things in place, right? They've got bad ideas, or no one's really thinking about the strategy. So they just go about creating stuff and putting it out into the world. It's just not doing anything because it doesn't have a good strategy behind it. Or maybe they hired a great strategist and then no one actually writes the emails or the blog posts or creates anything. So it's a great idea, no execution. Or maybe they do both. They've got great ideas. They write great content. They design really cool things. And then no one hears about it because they're not doing the distribution. It's not getting out into the world. And so if you're sitting here as a firm owner, you're thinking like, I'm doing stuff. I'm doing marketing, but it's not cutting through the noise. That's kind of where I would start and say, what of those three things, which one am I missing? Are we sure that the strategy is right? Do we have a production schedule? Things are actually getting done, or is the issue that it's not getting out into the world? And the reality, I'm going to kind of come back to this money thing, is that it's kind of expensive in either time or money to do that, and so you're probably underinvesting in one of those areas. And what really feels expensive is when you're spending some money to get no results, right? It's much easier to spend a bit more money if it turns into ROI than it is to spend a little bit and not see anything. I hope that makes sense.
No, it actually helps quite a bit. And I'm going to add to it something. I think that from a perspective of we're trying to get clients, we're obviously trying to make sales, get engagements with these clients that are going to be paying us over time. First things first, I think we need to know the lifetime value of our client.
Yes.
Knowing that lifetime value helps us better make a decision as to what we're willing to spend to get that client. If you're looking at it as, I've got a $500 a month bookkeeping client, it's kind of hard to justify spending $500 or more to get that client. But then when you back it out and say, but they're paying me $500 each and every month, I'm going to make $6,000 from this client in a year. I'm going to retain this client for as many as 7 years on average. So 7 times 6. Well, why am I complaining over $1,000 acquisition? I mean, I don't understand that. And so you've got to put it into perspective. It's the old adage of it takes money to make money. I mean, however you want to look at it, you just have to accept the fact that it's going to take some time and it's going to take some money. And if you're willing to put in the time and the money, you can get this. And just what are you willing to outsource to someone that's a professional? You're the accountant. You're not encouraging your clients to do the accounting and bookkeeping, the tax. You're encouraging them to outsource it to you. Well, why are you trying to hold on to the accounting and or to the marketing when you should be outsourcing it? So you got to get to a point where you can justify that. The other thing I would add to this narrative is just as an example that maybe can help mentally get your head around it is, you need to eat. And in order to eat, you need to get something to eat. And you've got a few approaches here. I can grow something in a garden. I can go fishing. I can go hunting. Well, if I'm going to go fishing, I don't take a rifle. If I'm going to go plant in the garden, I don't take a fishing pole. I've got to take the right tools and I've got to go to the right way for what I want. And I've got to be willing to put in the time and the energy and the effort to get out of it what I was hoping to receive. So if I'm going to be pheasant hunting, I don't take a rifle, I take a shotgun. I mean, there's just different approaches. So where do I want to find my clients? What networking, what marketing, what efforts am I going to do to find these ideal clients that I intend to work with? And that's just where I'm saying we need to be intentional and deliberate with these efforts. So I'm liking this conversation. So let me kind of bring this around full circle here. I've got one last question. The idea of marketing. What advice do you have to a business owner who's considering outsourcing marketing. They've gotten to a point where they're entertaining outsourcing it. What advice would you have as to how to decide and identify the right marketing team to work with?
Yeah. I'll actually point back to what we were just talking about, where you've got questions about strategy, production, and distribution. That's probably where I would start and ask, which problem do you actually have? And the answer might be all three, right? You might need help in all three of those areas, but you want to know when you're talking to a marketing partner, are they an order taker, right? That means you have to own the strategy. Like, you can have good ideas and other people can do them for you. You can outsource some of that creation of the marketing assets. But if you need strategy and you hire an order taker, it's not going to result in the outcomes that you want. And so make sure that you understand which of those pieces do you really need. I find with a lot of accounting firms that they have some resources in-house that they want to be able to use, as best they can. Maybe it's an admin person who's pretty good on Instagram, or maybe, they have someone who's part-time, but they could be full-time and they want to have half their time to be devoted to marketing. So you've got some resources in-house. And so understanding, what do you have already in terms of time resources, and what are you going to need to pay for? When it comes to a partner, though, I'll just put it bluntly. An agency owner, their job is to try to get you to buy more of their marketing services. And so in most cases, whatever services they offer, they're going to probably tell you it's a perfect match for the problems that you have. And that's not always the case. I've been known to be a little bit of an SEO skeptic. We don't do a ton of, especially the keyword SEO. It's a competitive space. It takes a long time to pay off, but you're probably getting half a dozen emails almost every day from an SEO company saying they can increase your search rankings. I'm probably going to bring a perspective that says that's not ideal for every accounting firm. Now, it's a little subtle difference, but local SEO, right, which is very focused on getting you to show up in the map pack when someone says accounting firm near me, that can be really powerful for an accounting firm, because a lot of your clients are local. So, I don't know that I have my ideas about what types of marketing accounting firms generally should be investing in, for sure. But you want to be careful that you're not just buying into the newest hype thing, like, hey, we're a TikTok firm, and so you should be on TikTok. You want to understand, is this really aligned with my audience? Is this a company that understands my industry, or just understands the thing that they sell and they think they can make it work for every industry? Those are some of the red flags that I might be looking for.
Yeah, no, that's really good. As you brought up local SEO, I'd add to that making sure everyone has their Google business listing. I think that's a very good first start, and that's something that you need to really focus on and leverage it. It's basically a free website that Google's giving you, and the more you can do on there, putting not just your hours of service and the services you provide, but putting images, perhaps posting some content, all of a sudden, that's a website that they're more than happy to promote and put at the top of the listing. So leveraging that is very, very great time well spent, especially for a local listing. This has been a wonderful conversation, Matt. What I want to do is come back to you for a closing thought, but I've got a few things to point out to the listeners. So quickly, let me just point out that in the episode description, we're going to be putting some listings here, or some items here, a few of the things that have been shared and mentioned during the conversation. We've shared a few books, so I'll try and put those in there so that you can have access to those. Also, Matt has an offer that he's going to be listing there in the episode description that I want to direct you to. Go see that and take advantage of it. It's definitely something that you want to not miss out on. Also, you can go there and get a copy of 2 great books that will enable you to actually refine your marketing messaging. And it's basically one of the books called In the Black 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. It helps you identify, first and foremost, the first thing of the 9 principles is nothing nothing happens until you make a sell, and it helps you realize that priority that it has. And then another book called Red to Black in 30 Days, it helps you understand how you can be very influential for your potential clients in helping them address the most common challenge that so many of them face, which is related to cash flow management. So go there, find out what it is that you can do to take advantage of these opportunities. In addition to that, one of the things that I do want to stress, and I think this is hugely important, is I believe we need to be a lot more clear in the services that we're truly providing our clients. What is our expertise? What is it that we're giving them? Is it bookkeeping services, accounting services, tax preparation services, tax planning services, CFO and advisory services? Can we really articulate well what it is that they're paying for and receiving from us? And that would be part of that story narrative that we were talking about earlier. Now, as a summary of our conversation, wonderful. This is great. We started off obviously talking about the websites, and I loved how we were able to identify specific pages that are best practices and the purpose of those pages, why they're so important, and how we can actually use them to customize the user's experience on our website, particularly when using a phone versus a computer, because so many users are now scrolling and just going through the page's content, as Matt was pointing out. The second thing that I thought was very helpful is we got into this conversation about marketing and selling, messaging, positioning. Really, are we in control of what we're saying, and are we being deliberate and intentional with that messaging to the right people? I use the statement of saying the right thing to the right people at the right time in the right way, and I think if we can break it down into that little narrative, we can really, in a deliberate way, come up with a concise messaging process. We talked about outsourcing marketing services, realizing that we have our strengths, and oftentimes when we need to grow the business, we need to leverage those people that know so much more about this part of the business that they can help us. And part of that conversation led to what is the lifetime value of a client, and knowing that it is worth the spend to actually get that client, and knowing what that is helping us determine the budget that we would then likewise use. The other thing that I thought was helpful is we had a conversation here towards the end about just how to make that decision and how to actually know when we're perhaps ready to outsource it. So lots of good things in the conversation today. Matt, what would you like to end with?
I think where I'll end is go to your website. When was the last time you went to it? Try to go with very fresh eyes and just take a look. So I think you mentioned, the website is like your brick and mortar place now, because that's the first interaction people have with you. I often think of a website as like a suit, right? Like if you show up for a sales call in an ill-fitting suit with patches on the elbows and it's out of style and all that, it doesn't really mean that you're bad at your job, but it does make a pretty significant impression about the type of business that you have. And so if you really want to go after higher end clients, higher value clients, or you have a really specific client in mind, go to your website with fresh eyes and say, would my ideal client understand exactly what I do and how I can help them? Would my ideal client relate to whatever it is that I'm putting out here in the design and the images and things that I show? Or do I have a website that's kind of designed for other accountants by other accountants, or is it designed for my ideal customer? That's like the number one place to start. If you can fix that, I've seen it time and time again when firms, all they do is they fix their website and it increases their sales the next year, by 50% or so. I'm not going to give you any guarantee numbers or anything, but we've seen a significant increase just by fixing your website to maximize more of the traffic that's already landing there. And that's the highest value change I think that you can do as a firm is get your website and your messaging on it right.
I love it. Your analogy is so spot on. I've been in business since 1979. I've been here with the company over 20 years, and we've had websites since the mid to late 90s. We've been online for that long. But the thing is there's no way in the world I'd have the website that I had back in let's see, 2002 still be the website that I'm using for our business.
Yeah.
I have to keep it updated. And so, yes, did I wear a suit that had patches on its elbow? I actually think I had a blazer that had
Sure.
those. So, go back 20 years, I probably did. I used to
fine
have
for
a
the time.
double-breasted. Yeah, I had a double-breasted suit. And I think they're coming back, by the way. But the point is we have to keep it fresh and we have to keep it relative. And right now you've got to keep it the word just escaped me, where it's mobile friendly.
Mobile optimized, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got to do those things just so that we can keep current with the technology and the times. So yeah, there's pictures of me out there with me being clean shaven. I haven't been clean shaven in a few years. I look a lot younger too. If I shaved, I'd probably lose 10 years. But the point is you've got to keep it relevant and current. And I liked how you pointed that out. So thank you for that. Well, everybody, I'd like to just thank you for listening to the episode. I've got a few closing remarks. One, definitely check out GrowCon. It's our annual event where we get together with accounting professionals. We hear from the experts. We visit and basically get to know one another's peers, and more importantly, find out what we can each do to work on our business. So I encourage you, check out GrowCon. It's an annual event in May that you do not want to miss, and we'd love to see you there. Also, remember to, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Go in there, set those reminders so that you get notified each and every time we release a new episode. Every week, we're releasing an episode for you to be able to work on your business and hear from the experts, just like we've done with Matt. And I encourage you to go back and binge listen, if you will, the past episodes. We've had some phenomenal topics on. You can actually go to the website where we have these listed at universalaccounting.com and find in the podcast a number of playlists that are organized based on interests. And so you might be able to find one that's very particular to what you are doing. And in doing so, listen to a number of podcasts on that very theme itself. The other thing I want to point out is we are interested in helping you work on your business. So if you have any questions or would like to learn more about these principles and how you can apply them in your business, feel free to reach out to us here at Universal Accounting. You can give us a call at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us online at universalaccounting.com. Be safe, take care, and always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal.